They thought I lost the house in court. Because that's what my ex told them. He told his family. He told our neighbors. He told anyone who would listen that the judge finally saw the truth, and I was done. He even laughed about it on speakerphone in the kitchen, while I stood in the hallway holding a glass of water so tight my fingers went white. Yeah, he said, calm and satisfied. The court gave it to me. She has to be out. 30 days. 30 days. That phrase again. People love deadlines when they think they're holding the leash. But here's what he didn't know. I wasn't losing the house. I was letting him believe I had. Because confidence built on a misunderstanding is fragile. And my ex was about to build his whole victory on a mistake he didn't bother to check. My name is Mara Caldwell. I was 41 when this happened. I work in underwriting and risk analysis. One of those jobs people don't understand until they need someone to find the hidden clause, the buried liability, the paper trail nobody wants to talk about. And I'm good at it. That's why what happened next wasn't luck. It was strategy. The day of the hearing, the courthouse smelled like old carpet and sanitizer, fluorescent lights, cold benches, people waiting with folders full of broken promises. My ex-husband, Ryan, sat at the other table in a charcoal suit, relaxed like he was at a job interview he already knew he'd ace. His mother sat behind him, Denise Hart, pearls, perfect hair, the kind of woman who smiles with her teeth, but not her eyes. Ryan didn't look nervous. He looked entitled. Because he'd spent months telling anyone who would listen that the house was his. Not because he paid for it, because he wanted it. And in Ryan's mind, wanting something long enough makes it yours. The house on Brookhaven Drive wasn't just a property. It was the only stable thing I had left after the marriage cracked. It was the place I'd repainted room by room. The place I'd planted a garden behind. The place where my daughter, Olivia, used to run down the stairs in sock feet like the house was a playground. Olivia was in college by then, out of state. And that made Ryan bolder, because he thought without a child in the house, I was easier to push. Ryan filed for divorce and asked for the house. Not half the equity, not a buyout. The house. He claimed he contributed. He claimed I promised. He claimed I agreed verbally at some point during a marriage argument when I was exhausted. Dana, my attorney, kept warning me. He's not asking because he expects fairness, she said. He's asking because he wants you to panic. And panic was exactly what Ryan tried to trigger. He showed up at the house with movers once. He sent letters about possession. He even told the HOA was moving out soon to make it feel real. But I didn't move. I documented every text, every letter, every time he showed up and tried to make my home feel temporary. Then the hearing came. Ryan's attorney argued that Ryan should be awarded the house because he needed stability and couldn't afford alternative housing. It was almost funny. The man who had been trying to evict me for months, suddenly claiming he needed stability. Dana stood and calmly laid out facts. The down payment came from my inheritance. The mortgage payments came from my account. The renovation receipts were in my name. The property taxes were paid by me. Then Ryan's attorney did the thing I didn't expect. He pulled out a document. A marital agreement. My stomach dropped, because I had never signed a marital agreement, but he slid it to the judge like it was a trump card. And when the judge glanced down, his eyes narrowed. Dana leaned toward me. "Stay calm," she whispered. Ryan's attorney spoke smoothly. "Your Honor, This agreement indicates Ms. Caldwell acknowledged Mr. Hart's entitlement to the residence in the event of dissolution. The judge looked at me. Ms. Caldwell, he said, is this your signature? I stared at the paper, and my blood turned to ice, because the signature looked like mine, close enough, but it wasn't. It was a practiced imitation, a forged curve, the kind of forgery that makes your body go cold because it means someone studied you. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Then Dana spoke. Your Honor, she said, calm. My client denies signing this. We request the original. We request authentication. And we request that this be excluded absent proof. Ryan's attorney shrugged. It's notarized, he said. Notarized. That word makes people believe anything. The judge sat back. He didn't rule immediately. He said something instead that changed the direction of the day. This court will take this under advisement, he said. A temporary order will issue. Temporary order. In family court, temporary orders are the difference between sleeping safe and sleeping scared. The judge looked directly at me. For now, he said, the property will be listed as disputed. Possession remains with the current occupant. I exhaled slightly, but Ryan's attorney smiled like he'd won something anyway, because even though I retained possession, the judge's disputed label gave Ryan exactly what he wanted. A headline, a rumor, a narrative he could twist. Outside the courtroom, Ryan walked past me and muttered, You're done. Then he went straight to his mother, and I watched Denise pull out her phone and start calling people. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already buzzing. A neighbor texted, Are you okay? Ryan said he won the house. Another, Do you have to move? Another, Let me know if you need boxes. Boxes. They were already packing me up. In their minds, Ryan wanted that, because if he could make the world believe I'd lost, maybe I'd start believing it too. And that was the first trap. The second trap arrived 3 days later. A letter from Ryan's attorney. Notice of intent to take possession. Attached. The temporary order. And here was the genius of Ryan's lie. The order didn't say he won. It didn't award him the house, but it did include one sentence. Parties shall refrain from interfering with listing and sale preparations. Listing and sale preparations. Ryan interpreted that sentence like it meant he could show up, walk through, stage, bring photographers, bring contractors, and treat my home like a product. He wanted to make me feel like a squatter in my own life, and he chose his timing perfectly because Olivia was away. My workload was heavy, and the forged agreement was still hanging in the air like a threat. Dana called me that evening. Mara, she said, Ryan is spinning this like a win. I know, I said. Let him, she replied. I blinked. What? Dana's voice was calm. Let him, she repeated. Because he just committed to a story, and if the story is wrong, we use it. Use it. That's when I understood. We weren't just defending. We were setting a trap of our own. Dana explained the plan. We would demand the original forged agreement. We would subpoena the notary's journal. We would request authentication. We would bring in a forensic document examiner if needed. But we would also watch what Ryan did next, because people who think they've won get careless. They celebrate, they brag, they send texts, they make mistakes, and those mistakes become evidence. Ryan's first mistake came the next morning. He showed up at my house with a photographer, like I had already lost. He rang the doorbell and spoke through the camera, cheerful. Open up, Mara. We're doing photos. Court said we can prep. I didn't open. I spoke through the camera. The court did not give you possession, I said. Leave. Ryan laughed. You can't stop it, he said. The judge knows what you did. What I did. He said it like I was guilty of something. Then Denise stepped into frame. She smiled at the camera like a politician. We're just making it easier for everyone, she said. Don't be difficult. Difficult. That word again. The one they use when a woman refuses to be moved. I called Dana. Dana said, don't open. Call non-emergency and save the footage. Police arrived. They told Ryan he had no right to enter without my consent. Ryan argued. Denise complained. And the officer, bless him, said the sentence Ryan didn't expect. Sir, a disputed property order is not an eviction. She lives here. You don't get to force entry. Ryan's smile faded. He left. But not before he looked straight at my camera and said softly, tick, tock, tick, tock. He wanted me to feel time tightening, but time was tightening on him too. Because behind the scenes, Dana had already subpoenaed the notary. And when the notary's response arrived, my stomach dropped. The notary listed on the forged agreement had retired 2 years earlier. Retired. Meaning the stamp should not have been used. Meaning someone had access to an old stamp. Meaning the notarized agreement was not just suspicious. It was criminal. Dana called me with the update. We have something, she said. What? I whispered. The notary's journal does not contain your signing, she said, and the stamp belongs to a retired notary. I exhaled hard. So it's fake. Yes, Dana said, and now we push. We filed a motion to strike the agreement. We filed a motion for sanctions. We requested a hearing specifically on the forged document. And while that moved, Ryan kept bragging. He posted on social media. Not directly about the case. He was too smart for that. But he posted pictures of the house, from the street, with captions like, new beginnings, fresh start, soon, soon. He was telling the world, which meant he wasn't being careful. And the final piece of the trap came from a place Ryan didn't expect. His own realtor, because in his excitement, Ryan had emailed the realtor a copy of the forged agreement to prove his entitlement. And that realtor, uncomfortable, cautious, forwarded it to her broker. And her broker, seeing a questionable notarization, emailed Ryan's attorney asking for verification. Verification. That email chain became discoverable. Dana subpoenaed it, and inside that chain was Ryan's line. Don't worry, Mara never reads what she signs. My throat tightened, because that sentence was the confession, not of forging directly, but of intent. He believed I was naive. He believed he could rewrite my paper history. Dana smiled slightly when she read it. This is why we let him talk, she said. The hearing on the forged agreement was set for a Monday. Ryan showed up looking less confident. Denise still wore pearls, but her smile was thinner. Dana brought a forensic examiner, a man with a calm voice and a laser pointer. He explained signature analysis, stroke pressure, line quality, natural hesitation. Then he pointed to the forged signature. This is a simulation, he said, not a genuine signature. Simulation, a clean scientific word for theft. The judge looked at Ryan. Mr. Hart, he said, do you have any explanation for this? Ryan's attorney tried to argue mistake, tried to say clerical error, tried to muddy. The judge didn't look amused. Then Dana submitted the notary retirement record, and the judge's face hardened. This document appears fraudulent, he said. Appears. He was choosing his words carefully, But then he said the part that made the room go cold. This court will refer this matter for investigation. Investigation. Ryan's face drained. Denise's pearls suddenly looked less like armor and more like costume jewelry. And then the judge issued a new order. The forged agreement is stricken. Sanctions will be assessed. And any future attempts to interfere with possession will be met with contempt. Contempt. That word is a threat courts mean. Ryan didn't speak, because he couldn't. Outside the courtroom, he finally looked at me like I was real. Not a problem to move. A person who had outplayed him. "You set me up," he hissed. I kept my voice calm. "No," I said. "You set yourself up. You just forgot I can read." A week later, the rumor shifted. The same neighbors who offered boxes now asked questions. Did he really forge something? Is there an investigation? Are you okay? Ryan stopped posting, stopped calling, stopped showing up, because his victory story collapsed. And here's the twist people didn't expect. The judge didn't award Ryan the house. He never had. But because Ryan had tried to manipulate the court with a forged document, the judge weighed bad faith heavily in final division. He awarded me the home, not because I begged, because Ryan proved he couldn't be trusted with it. Ryan got equity compensation over time, but with strict terms. No harassment, no interference, no possession games. And the payments were structured through escrow, with clear cure periods. In other words, the court built my safety into the paper. When the final order was recorded, I sat on my porch and let the quiet settle. The maple tree rustled, cars passed, a neighbor waved, and for the first time in months, the house felt like a home again. They thought I lost the house in court, because Ryan told them that story. He needed them to believe it so he could pressure me into leaving without making the court do it. But the truth? The court didn't take my house. It exposed his lie. And that exposure did something better than winning. It ended his control. So if you ever find yourself in a courtroom, listening to someone confident and loud, remember this. Confidence isn't proof. Paper is. And the people who rush to celebrate usually haven't checked the fine print. Let them celebrate. Let them brag. Because when the truth shows up, it's not loud. It's final. And that's how I kept my home. Not by being the loudest, by being the clearest. Ryan thought the investigation would scare me. He thought the word referral would make me back off. It didn't. Because once someone forges a document in open court, fear changes sides. 2 weeks after the forged agreement was struck, Ryan's attorney filed something new. Not a motion for the house, not a demand for possession, a motion for reconsideration of equitable distribution. Reconsideration, which in Ryan's language meant, if I can't take the house outright, I'll squeeze the numbers. Dana called me as soon as it hit the docket. He's pivoting, she said. He knows the forgery is radioactive, so now he's going after valuation. Valuation, of course. If he couldn't control the title, he'd attack the math. Ryan claimed the house had appreciated less than estimated. He argued the renovations I'd done were cosmetic. He tried to argue that my inheritance, used for the down payment, had been commingled and therefore fully marital. Commingled. That word again. The word people use when they want your money to forget where it came from. But here's what Ryan forgot. I keep records. I had wire confirmations from my inheritance account. I had contractor invoices. I had receipts for materials. I had emails discussing improvements. I had timestamps. Dana and I built a second binder. Not emotional, financial, Cold. Precise. At the reconsideration hearing, Ryan's attorney presented a new appraisal. It was lower than the one we used, conveniently lower. The judge glanced at it. "Was this done before or after the prior hearing?" he asked. "After," Ryan's attorney said. The judge's eyebrow lifted slightly. Dana stood. "Your Honor, this appraisal was ordered unilaterally after sanctions were imposed for fraudulent submission. We request a neutral court-appointed appraiser." Neutral. That word matters. Because neutral strips advantage, the judge agreed. Court-appointed appraisal ordered. And that's when Ryan made his second fatal mistake. He tried to influence the appraiser. Subtly. He emailed photos highlighting damage. He pointed out foundation concerns. He suggested market downturn risks. The appraiser documented the contact because professionals who value their licenses don't play games. The appraiser sent a copy of Ryan's communication to both attorneys. Dana forwarded it to me with one line. He just violated neutrality. At the next status conference, the judge looked at Ryan with open irritation. "Mr. Hart," he said, "why are you communicating directly with a neutral expert?" Ryan's jaw worked. "I was just providing information," he said. The judge's voice cooled. "You were attempting to influence," he replied. And then something subtle shifted in the room. Not dramatic, but real. Ryan stopped looking like a strategic ex-spouse. He started looking reckless. The neutral appraisal came back higher than either prior estimate, higher, which meant more equity, which meant more money at stake. And here's the irony. If Ryan had accepted the earlier valuation and behaved, he would have received a larger share without issue. But because he pushed, manipulated, forged, the court weighed bad faith again. Dana requested attorney's fees tied to the forged document, requested compensation for delay, requested allocation adjustment based on litigation misconduct. And this time, the judge didn't hesitate. "Mr. Hart's conduct has increased costs and delayed resolution," he said. "The court will allocate fees accordingly." Allocate fees accordingly, which meant Ryan would pay, not just financially, structurally, because the final distribution order came down like this. I retained the house. Ryan received an equity payout structured over time, but his payout was reduced by sanctioned attorney's fees, litigation costs, expert fees, and a penalty tied to the forged agreement. The numbers were clear. His attempt to steal the house cost him nearly 6 figures, and that's when the calls stopped. No more drive-bys, no more TikTok, no more social media hints, because the narrative had flipped. He hadn't won. He had tried to cheat, and it was on record. 3 months later, I received a certified letter, not from Ryan, from the district attorney's office. They had reviewed the forged agreement matter. While they declined to file criminal charges, citing evidentiary thresholds and resource allocation, they issued a formal warning letter to Ryan regarding document fraud and misuse of notarization. A warning letter, official, filed, permanent. Ryan didn't get jail, but he got something almost worse for a man like him. Documentation, because documentation follows you. In background checks, in civil disputes, in future litigation. And men who live on reputation hate paper trails they didn't control. The last time I saw Ryan was at a mediation for final escrow terms. He looked different, quieter. His confidence had shrunk. He didn't avoid my eyes. He just didn't hold them long. "I never thought it would go this far," he said quietly, while we waited for paperwork. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, calmly, It didn't have to. He swallowed. I thought you'd just leave, he admitted. And there it was. The truth. He didn't think he'd win in court. He thought I wouldn't fight. He thought the rumor would be enough. The pressure, the embarrassment, the fear. He thought the story would push me out before the judge had to. He miscalculated. When the final deed confirmation came through, recorded, clean, undisputed, I printed a copy. Not to frame, not to show off, to keep. Because records are memory, and memory matters. Neighbors who once texted about boxes now texted congratulations. Denise stopped making eye contact at the grocery store. Ryan stopped telling people he won because he hadn't, and the story he told collapsed under evidence. They thought I lost the house in court because that's what he needed them to believe. If enough people believe you're defeated, you might start acting like you are. But here's what I learned. Court isn't about who talks first. It's about who proves. And power isn't about who threatens louder. It's about who documents better. If someone ever tells you you've already lost, pause. Ask to see the order. Ask to read the actual ruling. Ask for the stamped copy. Because rumors are leverage. But stamped documents are truth. Ryan built his victory speech before the judge even ruled. He celebrated too early, pushed too hard, forged too boldly, and in doing that, he gave me exactly what I needed. Proof of bad faith, proof of manipulation, proof that control, not fairness, was his goal. And courts don't reward that. When I walk through my living room now, sunlight hitting the hardwood floors we refinished together years ago, I don't think about the forged document. I think about the moment in the courtroom when the judge said, "This document appears fraudulent." Because that sentence ended more than a case. It ended a narrative. They thought I lost the house in court. But the court didn't take my house. It took his leverage. And once leverage is gone, control disappears. That's how I kept my home. Not by yelling, not by panicking, by reading, by documenting, by waiting until the story he told couldn't survive the evidence. And if you ever find yourself in a courtroom where someone is smiling like they've already won, let them. Because confidence without proof is a house built on sand. And when the tide comes in, only the documented truth stays standing.